I've always believed that some stories aren't written on paper, but carved into the heart. Mine begins on a quiet evening, under the dim lights of a small-town cafe. I wasn't looking for love that night. I wasn't looking for anything at all, really. But life has this way of surprising us when we least expect it. As I sat with my coffee, half lost in thought, I noticed her. She wasn't extraordinary in the way the world often defines beauty, but something about her presence demanded attention. There was grace in the way she carried herself, like she belonged to a different era, untouched by the rush and noise of today. And in that instant, before a single word was exchanged, I knew this meeting would change everything. It started with a smile. You know the kind, the smile that doesn't just move lips, but seems to light up the entire room. She sat at the table across from me, and for a moment, it felt as if the cafe had gone silent. Our eyes met, and the air shifted. I wanted to look away, pretend I hadn't been caught staring, but something inside me refused. She leaned forward, brushed a strand of hair behind her ear, and offered me a small nod, as if giving me permission to approach. My heart raced in a way I hadn't felt since childhood, when everything was new and full of wonder. I stood, walked over, and introduced myself. That was the beginning of a love I didn't know I had been waiting for my entire life. The more we spoke, the more I realized she was different. Not just different from anyone I'd met, but different from the world around us. While everyone seemed obsessed with speed, screens, and shortcuts, she valued time. She spoke slowly, listened deeply, and laughed without hesitation. When she told me she collected handwritten letters instead of emails, I couldn't help but smile. She said there was something magical about ink on paper, about holding a piece of someone's soul in your hands. I found myself leaning in, wanting to know more, craving to be part of her world. It was a world that reminded me of stories my grandparents used to tell, a world where love wasn't about instant messages but about effort, patience, and presence. Days turned into weeks, and I found myself falling into her rhythm. She taught me how to appreciate silence, how to find beauty in small details. We'd walk together through the park, not rushing anywhere, just existing side by side. She'd stop to admire a flower, trace her fingers across the old bark of a tree, or watch the way the light shifted on the water. At first, I thought it was unusual, maybe even impractical, but then I realized, this was living. This was love in its purest form. It wasn't about what we could get from each other, but what we could share, what we could create in the spaces between words. I started writing her letters too. Clumsy at first, awkward even, but she cherished them as if they were treasures. And for the first time in years, I felt seen, truly seen. But every great love story comes with its trials, and ours was no exception. She carried a quiet sadness, something hidden deep in her eyes. I'd catch glimpses of it when she thought I wasn't looking, and it haunted me. One evening I finally asked. She hesitated, then confessed. Her time was limited. A condition she had carried for years was slowly stealing her strength, though you'd never guess it from her laughter or the way she embraced life. My heart sank, but she looked at me with such calm that it was impossible not to feel her courage. "Don't love me because of how long I'll stay," she whispered. "Love me because I'm here now." In that moment, I understood the true meaning of old-fashioned love. It wasn't about forever, but about the depth of each moment we are given. We lived each day as if it were both our first and last. We danced in empty streets at midnight, wrote poems on napkins, and left them hidden in books at the library for strangers to find. She showed me that love wasn't measured by grand gestures but by the small, ordinary things that carried extraordinary meaning. Like the way she'd press flowers into my notebooks, or how she'd hum softly when she thought I was asleep. I held on to every detail, every second, because I knew one day, all I'd have left would be the memory of her. And yet, strangely, there was no despair, only gratitude. Gratitude that fate had brought her into my life, even if only for a chapter. The last letter she gave me wasn't meant to be opened while she was alive. She placed it in my hands with that same radiant smile and said, "For when the silence feels too heavy." I didn't want to think about that moment, didn't want to imagine life without her. But time, as it always does, moved forward. The day came when her chair at the cafe was empty, when the world felt dimmer without her laughter. I opened the letter through tears, and inside were just a few simple words. Love like this never ends. Carry it forward. And so, here I am, telling you our story. Not because it was perfect, but because it was real. An old-fashioned love, the kind that doesn't fade with time or distance. The kind that reminds us what truly matters. I share this with you not as a memory of loss, but as a gift of hope, that somewhere, somehow, love will find you too. And when it does, hold it close, cherish it, and never let the noise of the world convince you that it isn't enough. Because in the end, love is all we ever truly have. There is something deeply moving about the idea of slowing down in a world that constantly pushes us to go faster. The story we just shared isn't only about love, it's a reminder that life itself is not meant to be rushed. Think about it. How often do we overlook the simple joys because we are too distracted by screens, deadlines, and endless to-do lists? The woman in this story found beauty in letters, in flowers, in the silence between words. And isn't that what so many of us are missing today? We chase after the next big achievement, the next notification, the next like, without realizing that the greatest treasures are already right in front of us. The lesson here is not only about cherishing another person, it is about cherishing life itself, one detail at a time. When we begin to notice the small things, we also begin to notice how extraordinary our ordinary lives can be. Another reflection this story brings is the way we often measure love and success by duration instead of depth. We ask ourselves, how long will this last? How much can I hold on to? But what if the true measure of life is not longevity, but intensity? The woman in the story had limited time, yet she lived fully, fiercely, without holding back. She laughed without fear, she gave her love generously, she left pieces of her soul in every letter and every smile. How often do we hold ourselves back because we fear loss? We avoid vulnerability, thinking it will protect us, but all it really does is prevent us from truly living. The lesson is clear: love, kindness, and presence should not be rationed. They should be poured out daily, because none of us are promised tomorrow. And when we dare to live this way, we discover that even short seasons of life can echo through eternity. We can also see how this story reflects the power of legacy. The last letter she left behind wasn't a goodbye, it was a continuation. Love like this never ends. Carry it forward. Those words remind us that every act of love we share doesn't just disappear. It multiplies. Think about the people who have touched your life deeply: a teacher, a friend, a family member who may no longer be here, but whose presence still lives within you. Their influence shapes the way you treat others, the way you approach challenges, the way you love. That's the beauty of old-fashioned love. It transcends time, because it's rooted not in convenience but in authenticity. If we choose to live with the same intention, then every smile we offer, every letter we write, every act of kindness we show becomes part of a ripple effect that reaches far beyond what we can see. We don't just live, we leave something behind. This story also teaches us about courage in the face of pain. It's easy to believe that strength means hiding our struggles, but true strength is the ability to embrace life even when it hurts. The woman carried her illness not as a burden to hide, but as a reason to live with more urgency and joy. How many of us, when faced with difficulties, retreat into bitterness or despair? And yet, she chose gratitude, laughter, and love. That kind of courage is contagious. It reminds us that we don't need a perfect life to live beautifully, we need a brave heart. In our everyday struggles, whether it's work stress, financial worries, or health battles, we can choose to face each day as an opportunity to love deeper, smile wider, and live fuller. Her story challenges us to stop waiting for the perfect moment, because the perfect moment is already here, if only we decide to see it. Finally, there's a lesson about presence. We live in an era where our attention is constantly stolen, where we are physically present but mentally scattered. Yet love, real, lasting love, demands presence. It asks us to put down the phone, to look into someone's eyes, to write words that cannot be erased with a single click. The woman's love was old-fashioned not because it belonged to the past, but because it demanded presence in a way that feels rare today. And that is perhaps the greatest takeaway for all of us, to give ourselves fully to the people and the moments that matter. Whether it's sharing a meal with family, walking through a park with a friend, or even sitting alone in silence, we can choose to be present. Because presence is what transforms fleeting time into eternal memory. And now, as we come to the end of this reflection, I want to thank you for staying with me through this journey. This wasn't just a story, it was a mirror, showing us what we often forget in the rush of daily life. If this touched your heart, if it reminded you of someone you love or inspired you to live more intentionally, then I ask you to carry this message forward. Don't let it end here. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want to continue exploring stories and reflections that remind us of what truly matters, make sure to subscribe to this channel. Leave a comment sharing your thoughts, and let's keep this conversation alive together. Most importantly, share this video with a friend, because love, just like this story, was never meant to be kept, but to be passed on.